One of the things that I was just pondering just backstage, getting ready to come and deliver something from the Word this morning is, I guess it's a greater distance than suburbs, but it's this idea that God, the creator of the universe, is present with us today. And he wants a relationship with people. We have people you're sitting beside. We have neighbors. We have family. But one of these things that was just evident in the songs today, and thank you, Hannah, for sharing that story and that song with us today. But one of the things that was evident is just this reality of God's intense desire to be relational. And that's a really exciting thing. In the Word of God, I wouldn't even say it's hidden, I'd say it's in plain sight, simplicity to how he sees that relationship working. He intentionally gives us handles and actions and ways that we can live out his word. And that's what I'm hoping today, that we can see and unpack as we look at some more things on this idea of loving our neighbor. Now, I'm sure you would be surprised by this, but every so often I get frazzled and frustrated. No one's surprised, okay? There you go. But I wonder if you've ever done this. Heading to work, and I'm running around the house frantically looking for my sunglasses. I cannot find them. I left them on the table. I wish somebody would leave things where I put them. You just let little statements out so other people in the house can hear and can know. And I'm moving around. I'm throwing the bedroom upside down. It was clean. Now it's not, as I've frantically frazzled and started blame shifting. Someone's taken my glasses. And then I walk into the bathroom. Maybe I left them in the bathroom. I look up in the mirror and there they are. Right on my head. Right in plain sight. And one of the things that is so evident in the Word of God is some duh moments. Some like, hey, it's right there. It's right on your head. It's right in front of you. And that's what we're going to be looking at today as we dig a little deeper into this idea of loving thy neighbor. So love thy neighbor, we looked at the idea last week and how it is all-encompassing. And here's this big commandment, this big idea. When Jesus was asked, what's the greatest commandment? Multiple times through the Gospels, multiple times through the letters that Paul wrote, and you'll find it in Leviticus, in the Old Testament, is this idea of loving God and all people. Okay, so that's what we unpacked last week is, who is my neighbor? It's an all-encompassing, the annoying, the frustrating, the people that are in need of mercy that you're able to give. All people. Then digging a little deeper today, I want to just help us understand that a relational God is not a religious God. And here's the step that I hope you can see within the passage as we look at it this morning, that love thy neighbor. It's a lofty command, but it's sent to my home address. Sometimes we see this idea as, well, this is just a religious code of conduct. It's a good thing to live by. It's a good thing to abide by. And as I've been walking around this week, I've been looking for people that I can show mercy to. Great. And I've opened my heart to loving all people and to being considerate of all people. And as we consider this, as I consider this, there is some more meaning and depth to it. Collectively, one thing I am sure of is that we're all called to love our neighbor. We're all called to love our neighbor. It's something that is extended to each and to every one of us this morning. So as we look at some things that exist within the Word of God, the Bible, it's a fascinating book. In fact, as you consider just you may have a paper copy or a digital copy with you this morning. It's actually a collection of books. It's 66 of them. And over a period of roughly 1,500 years, some 40-odd authors penned the words that are contained within this collated book that we call the Bible. And there's one continuous message. You think about different people within history. There's Julius Caesars, there's Napoleons, there's Alexander the Great. There's all of these people within history, and the content of writing to which we today say this person existed and this person did these things pales in significance to the content of writing that gives evidence to the life of Jesus Christ. It's an incredible book. And as we look at it's in two parts. We have the Old Testament and the New Testament. Now, in the Old Testament, it was written in Hebrew. It was to the Jewish people in its inception. And then you find in the New Testament, it was written in Greek. So as we consider and study things like this, it's why we reference these languages, because it helps us gain maybe a broader and deeper understanding of the words and the things that are trying to be said. So as I dig deeper into this morning, I just looked at what the Greek word and what the Hebrew word for neighbor means. And in the Greek, it's the one who is near. And in Hebrew, it's referred to as a person in proximity. So what we see here is, yes, this love thy neighbor, I love all people, but there is a very present opportunity in this call to love our neighbor. And here's what we're going to look at as we get started this morning, that your address has been purposely designed and assigned to you. I want to take you to the book of Acts as we get started this morning. We're going to jump back over to Luke, where we've been as in this series. But Acts 17:26, there's a statement made that I find incredibly encouraging, but also a little bit of weight to this. In Acts 17:26, he says this: He has made from one blood every nation of men to live on the entire surface of the earth. So here's this all people, this big idea, this big planet, having appointed fixed times and the boundaries of their habitations. What this defines and gives us clear understanding of is that God has specifically placed you where you are next to the people you're next to. He knew you would be there. So maybe your address is a little bit more divine than you imagine, than you've ever thought, than you've ever given thought to. Because not only is there a time in which you exist, but there's boundaries to where you live and habitations that you have. Your address, your place of dwelling, has some divine significance. We're going to continue looking through what Jesus said to this lawyer that we spoke of last week, and we summarize these next few verses. I want to just take us through them in examining the response that Jesus gave to this man when he asked, "Who is my neighbor?" So we're in Luke 10, chapter 10, verse 30, and Jesus answers him when he is asked that question, "Who is my neighbor?" And this is Jesus' answer. He says, "A certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell among thieves, which stripped him of his raiment, his clothing, and wounded him, and they departed, leaving him half dead." I notice here in this text, as we're going to start to see a pattern, that idea of a certain man, and it's an indefinite pronoun, and what it means is it's an all-encompassing thing. It was a specific individual, but then he brings a definite action into this story. So whilst there's this big idea, a certain man went down from Jerusalem, we pick it up in verse 31, and by chance there came down, what's the next word? A certain priest, and he passed that way, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. We start to see this big idea, but then being connected to proximity. In order to see something, you need to be near it. And likewise, a Levite, when he was at the place, came and looked on him, so there was a proximity yet again, and passed on the other side. But what's the next word? But a certain Samaritan. So we see that again, a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed, came where he was. And when he saw him, he had compassion on him and went to him, bound up his wounds, pouring oil and wine, and set him on his own beast and brought him to the inn and took care of him. So this is Jesus' answer to this man when asked, "Who is my neighbor?" Jesus then goes on to say, which one of these was neighbor? And the lawyer responds with the one who showed mercy, as we saw last week. A couple of things I want to just see and show you in this passage. Obviously, this is a New Testament passage. And real quickly, I just want to show you, as you look at these different titles and different things that are mentioned, we have a certain man that's first mentioned. And when you see that, the tis or tis, and the word before it is the word for man in Greek, you see it there. And then when you look at the next reference to a certain priest, you see that TIS, that little symbol after the word in bold. And then when you see a Levite, it says, and likewise a Levite, the tis is gone. And one of the things that this sort of hits home to me on is the priest and the Levite, they were somewhat connected in their services, and the Levites did the service of the temple and would very much so be led by the example of the priest. And if anybody in our city ought to love their neighbor, it ought to be the church. It ought to be Christians. And this is a tough thing to consider, but as a Christian, I'm a representative of Jesus. And as such, I should be able to do this really well. I would hate for there to be Levites or people that are going about their business, but they're looking to this Christian and they're just following suit. The absence of this certain word, of this pronoun, helps us maybe see that there are people that are following your lead. Can you imagine what our city would look like should the Christians fulfill this simple commandment? It'd be a great city. It then continues. You see a certain Samaritan. You see the tis again. But what we also see is some definite action. So when Jesus was speaking then to this man, to this lawyer, he identified it was the one who showed mercy, and Jesus continued and followed up with this. He said, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go and do you likewise. Then Jesus says to him, go and do thou likewise. So for you and I, our certain man, our certain people are going to be certainly connected to your circumstances. They're going to be people within your proximity. And here's what Jesus then says. He says, go and do ye likewise. He says, there's going to be people in your proximity, and there is a purpose for them being there, and there's something that you ought to be doing in and through that space. The very next verse, verse 38. Jesus was renowned for practicing what he preached. Here's what the very next verse says. Now it came to pass, as they went, that he entered a certain village. Yet again, just driving home, that he entered Rockhampton. He entered Norman Gardens, Bersica, whatever suburb you've listed this morning. He entered a certain place, and a certain woman named Martha received him into her house. Just reiterating, you see that pattern continue, a certain, and then a certain. And then one of the next things that I see present in this text is Jesus taking that an additional step. Jesus taking that an additional step. So it was a certain village, a certain woman, and that certain woman was named Martha. Jesus knew the name of this lady. And what I want to say to us, and to myself included this morning, is imagine if you and I loved our actual neighbors. As you came in this morning, you received a sheet of paper. I want you to grab that out. And on that sheet of paper is a little table. And on that table, right in the center of that, represents your house, where you live. Now, I want to just give you a moment, whether you do this mentally, grab a pencil in front of you, but as you consider maybe your orientation where you live, you've got, don't have people living behind you or beside you or in front of you, but somewhere you have a neighbor. I wonder if you could fill in the names of the people that live around you. I wonder this morning if you could fill in and you know the names of your neighbors. And what I want to get to us this morning is, what if the first step to loving your neighbor is as simple as meeting them? We've got this big ideal, love your neighbor. Yes, I love all people. Yes, I go out. And as I consider this and I've looked at this, it's in the high percentiles of people. And I would say here, I'm not going to ask for a show of hands because it might be a little embarrassing, but there would be people, many of us present here, that don't know the names of our all surrounding neighbors, and I'm inclusive of them. I know 3 of our surrounding neighbors by name, and I've got some work to do this week as well. What if we actually loved our actual neighbors? Your address is not an accident. Your address is not an accident. And as you consider this chart this morning, I wonder how many of these homes have names on them. All of them do, but I wonder if you know their names. Because you see, a relational God works his gospel throughout and through relationships. You see, the Great Commission was for people to go and see people, to find people, to interact with people. And right next door to you, right behind you, right across the street from you are, guess what? People. And we have this great commandment from God. We go around wondering, oh man, I really want to know the will of God for my life. I wish I knew the will of God for my life. There's providential will of God. There's the practical will of God. And the practical will of God are the things that exist within his word. This is absolutely, I can tell you without a doubt, that this is the will of God, that you love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and that you love your neighbor. According to Acts, it tells us that you are divinely placed in this specific time and at the specific place. The will of God for you is to love your actual neighbors. Yes, the exegesis of this text is a big idea, but present in it is an indifferent and a definite, indefinite and a definite call to action. All people. But he doesn't say love your neighbors, he says love your neighbor. There's a singularity to this command as well. If we walk around with this lofty idea of I love all people, yep, I'm just looking for that opportunity to pay for someone's groceries. I'm just looking for that opportunity to feed a homeless person. I'm loving my neighbor, great. But what about your actual neighbors? Because here's a truth that hits me hard. You can't love people you don't know. I'm not talking about going over and giving them the Romans road or reading to them from Genesis to revelation. I'm talking about, hi, my name's Ben. I'm sorry we've lived together. I lived next door for 5 years and never said hi. We went to visit some friends for lunch a couple of weeks ago, and we were unsure of which house it was. So me and my wife hid behind a tree while my daughter went and knocked on a door, and it wasn't the house that we're supposed to be visiting. Hey, we're here for lunch. And they said, if you got the right address, it's this person's name. And they knew their neighbor. They said, oh yeah, they're next door. Good job, those people. Your neighbors knew you. But I wonder how many of us are like the priest. Whoop, neighbors are out. Whoop, back in the garage. Maybe the neighbors are making a bit of a noise or doing something, and we're a bit more like the Levite. We'll sort of go look over the fence. But as soon as it looks a little like they're coming our way, will we be a Samaritan? Will we do something as simple as seeing a real person in need of relationship, in need of a living God who transformed your life and can transform theirs? And the very simple starting point of this is, hi, my name is, and fill in the blank. Well, they should do that. Part of being a leader, and you might think, I'm not a leader, but Christ calls us to lead people to Him. Part of being a leader is taking that first step, and it can be scary, I get it. Next week, we're going to talk about what about difficult neighbors? What does the Bible have to say about difficult neighbors? Because surely I can write them off. The Bible actually says a bit about it and how to work with those people. But this morning, what if our first step was simply meeting our neighbors? That little chart that you've got, maybe you haven't had a moment to fill it out, but I encourage you to maybe stick it on your fridge or put it somewhere this week, and for the remainder of this month, in the lead up to the Easter month, have all those boxes filled in. You know what? I know the names of my neighbors. You know what that develops into? Hi, my name's Ben develops into, hey, do you need help with that? To, hey, I notice your kids haven't been around lately. Is everything okay? To the neighbor then coming and saying, hey, this is going on. Can you help me with this? Can you talk to me about this? Relationships. They usually start with a hello. And you've been divinely placed in a place that people surround you. As our musicians come this morning, I want us just to imagine for a moment that we are able to fulfill this command. Imagine if we're able to do what God has simply asked of us to do. And in doing so, here's what happens. Actually, there was a man by the name of Rene Dubos, I think it was his name, and he thought about things a little differently, and he coined a phrase that is maybe you've maybe heard it before, but here's what he did. He investigated and was in the area of biology and science, and he was investigating this thought that we could combat bacterial diseases. So he was doing things a little differently. The others in his other colleagues were looking at the chemical compounds of different things, but he went a little more grassroots, I guess you could say. He localized it and went to the soil, the very soil under his feet, and started to work through what was in that soil and discovered something that became the very first, or one of the very first commercially available antibiotics. So this gentleman that did this has coined this phrase that you ought to think globally and act locally. Just a few weeks ago, I finished a course of biotics, and as I finished them, his localized thinking impacted me in Bersica, Rockhampton. The call of God on us as Christians, on us as humanity is just the same. It is to think globally. Yes, this is a big ideal. Yes, this is a big picture thinking, but he's calling us to act locally. Think globally, act locally. Just around the corner is one of the seasons each year that is gifted to us as we remember what Jesus has done for us. Easter. He gave himself freely so that we can live freely. And I want that for my neighbors. I want that for you. I want that for your neighbors. He wants that for you. He wants a relationship with you that is transformative. So as we have this opportunity approaching us, maybe it'll be next year that you'll finally have gotten beyond acquaintance to friends with your neighbors, and an invite to church would be on the cards. But it starts with a hi, my name is, and at least knowing the names of your neighbors. You know what else it does? Makes you think twice about the things that come out of your mouth in anger within the walls of your home, because all of a sudden, oh, my neighbors know me. It's helpful in all sorts of ways, but it's a completion and an action that allows us to live out what God said was the most important command. So may God help us do just that. May God help us welcome people into our homes. May God help us build relationships with people. On our team here at the Lighthouse, we have a first impressions team, and present in this team is opportunities to welcome people to this place, to this house. A church is a group of people. We meet in this building, but as we meet in this building, it's our church home for the gathering that we have. So our first impressions team is a great place for you to do something practical, and I'm really excited to see new faces out there doing that. As we get ready for Easter, I want to extend to you a church need, and that is we're looking for people to help make this home, to help make this place homely. And you can sign up this morning for a team night that is coming, and if you cannot get access to that code, there is one out on the info desk this morning. If you're thinking about what more practical things can I do, I can say hi to my neighbor, but I can also be involved in my church in that forward-facing, welcoming place where I get to know people's names, where I get to form and start relationships. A great place to serve in your local church. This Easter, we're going to have baptisms. So if you're considering getting baptized as an adult, we've got baptisms next Sunday for children, but Easter Sunday, it's a great Sunday to get baptized. But it's also a really great in for you to say to a friend, to a neighbor, to a friend, hey, I'm getting baptized today. I'd love for you to come and be part of the service. So if you'd like to get baptized, let us know. We've got a few people lined up already, and we're really excited about sharing those stories. What is baptism? It's an identification. It's where you have made a decision to follow Jesus and you're going to let everybody know. It's a public identifying with Christ that we celebrate, that the Bible asks and implores us to do as followers of Jesus. So that's on the cards. Right after Easter, Pastor Jeremy's starting a course called Starting Point, and it's 8 weeks, and it takes people through, it helps us navigate faith. So there's just so many things that are happening and lining up that are all dependent on us being relational people, on being missional Christians, on finding people that are looking for answers and fulfilling what God said was the most important thing, that we love God and love our neighbor. And I think the handles for us today, the practical application for us today, I've given us a few things there. Invite someone to Easter Sunday. Be present. Be be surrendered to get baptized. Sign up to First Impressions team. There's a team night coming up, and we'll rally and equip you on what to do. It'll be a lot of fun. But that neighborhood map that you have, I hope to know the names of everyone on that by the end of this month. And what if loving my neighbor actually extended to my actual neighbors? And I put it to you that it does. May God bless you, equip you, and may you go and do ye